Hello, I'm John Abberger, the Artistic Director of the Toronto Bach Festival, and this is Discover Bach. Antonio Vivaldi's collection of concertos called L'Estro Armonico took Europe by storm when they were published in Amsterdam in the year 1711. Among the music directors to be captivated by this strikingly original music was Prince Johann Ernst of Saxe-Weimar. The prince traveled in 1713 from his court in Germany to the Low Countries, or what is now Holland and Belgium, and brought back so much music that the palace library had to have new shelves constructed to accommodate it. One of the first people to play this music upon the prince's return was the court organist, the 28-year-old Johann Sebastian Bach. Now, compositions called concertos certainly existed before Vivaldi and Bach, but around the beginning of the 18th century, composers began to write a new kind of work that featured a dialogue between a large ensemble, usually a group of string players, and a soloist or group of soloists. The riveting opening statement by the full ensemble is a distinguishing feature of these new Italian concertos. But more importantly, the dialogue structure presented new possibilities for musical development, possibilities that were ingeniously exploited by Vivaldi and his contemporaries. We can imagine that Bach and the Prince were eager to investigate this new music. And Bach began to produce a series of transcriptions for solo harpsichord of some of these concertos. Here is Bach's transcription of the Vivaldi concerto you just heard. In all, 16 concerto transcriptions in Bach's hand have survived. And the diversity of these pieces gives us some sense of how much music the Prince collected. There are 6 concertos by Vivaldi, 1 by Benedetto Marcello, 1 by Giuseppe Torelli, 1 by Georg Philipp Telemann, no fewer than 3 by the Prince himself, 3, the originals for which we cannot trace, and finally, this concerto by Benedetto Marcello's brother, Alessandro Marcello. And here is the original, more familiar to us as the Concerto for Oboe in D minor by Alessandro Marcello. If you were to ask music lovers today whether the name Alessandro Marcello carries the same weight as Johann Sebastian Bach, the answer would almost certainly be no. But Bach was deeply influenced by Marcello's concertos, no less than by the works by the other composers that he transcribed. 22 years later, in 1735, Bach published a collection of his own keyboard works called Klavierübung, or keyboard practice. And this collection included a work he called, in one of those wonderful mashups of German and Italian, Concerto nach Italienischem Gusto, or Concerto in the Italian style. This work was widely admired, as we can tell from a review at the time. Preeminent among the works known through published prints is a clavier concerto by the famous Bach in Leipzig. Who will not admit at once that this clavier concerto is a perfect model of a well-designed solo concerto? Since Bach transformed Marcello's Concerto for Oboe into a work for solo harpsichord, why not return the favor and transform, or transcribe, if you will, his Concerto for Solo Harpsichord into this, a work for solo oboe? By making this transcription, we can bring the process full circle and add a sparkling new work to Bach's concerto repertory. If you'd like to hear a complete performance of the first movement of this concerto, click the link on your screen.